Council on July 14th, 2020. First off, we have a report on closed session. If we can get that out of the way.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. City Council has been in closed session on the item listed on the agenda, which was a conference with labor negotiator with the parties and groups listed on the agenda. The council met and conferred with the negotiators, gave direction, and there's no final action to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, I don't know if she's not quite ready, but when she is, then we will dispense with the roll call. For those of you joining us, sorry it took us a little bit. We had a closed session item we had to confer with our attorney about, so we are just now getting started.
Call the roll. Councilman Jindal, Councilman Leonard.
Here.
Councilman Rigsby, Mayor Pro Tempore Daly.
Here.
Mayor Duper.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we just gave the report on closed session, so now we will begin with our invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Councilman Leonard.
Let's all stand. Our kind Father in heaven, we thank you for your watch, care, and love for us. We pray your blessing upon this meeting, that we will come to the decisions that are in the best interest of our city. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seated.
Okay, thank you. Mr. City Manager, do we have any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
This will be a time for any reports or public participation on items not on the agenda this evening. I understand we have a couple of requests on Zoom for an agendized item, but we will get to that shortly. So unless there's anyone else that is waiting to speak on something that is non-agendized, I see nobody waving or flagging us down. We will move on to our schedule and related items. We'll handle conflicts of interest as they arise. Based on the report from our IT folks that we have a couple of people wanting to speak. Well, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Mr. City Manager, you said we have. You told me earlier we were going to strike a couple of our items off the agenda.
No, there's none. Number 3 and 4 will be continued to July 28th, but because it's addressed as a public hearing, we have to open that first, right, Barbara? Number 3 and 4. Yes.
Yes, we need to open the public hearing. Anybody that wants to speak tonight, but there were some mishaps in the posting and noticing, so we were forced to continue it to the next meeting.
Okay. So since we are going to have to work through them, and because we have some people that want to speak on item number 14, I'm going to suggest we dispense with item 14 first. Do any have objection to that? Sorry, Conrad, you probably weren't ready. Okay. So any members of the public that were wanting to speak on this item, we will get you queued up on Zoom. And Mr. Assistant City Manager, if you would give us the presentation, please.
Okay. And I feel like Bob Barker. Okay. So I'm going to recap a little bit of what happened and what's going on with the Ritchie Canyon, and not even Ritchie Canyon. This is an area of land inside the city of Loma Linda, inside Loma Linda city limits. It currently remains inside the city limits, and we'll walk through the process from where we were to where we are today. So on October 10th of 2017, the City Council met to discuss a request to have the sphere of influence. The sphere of influence is basically a planning mechanism for the area that we see here on the monitor. This is Ritchie Canyon Road down here, Scotch Lane. The southern portion of Loma Linda, you can kind of see the end of Anderson Way, the top end of Lawton up here, and then Crystal Ridge and that part. Ritchie Canyon Road runs up on this side. So the parcel that was requested is this one here and this one here. The owner requested that be shifted from the sphere of influence of Loma Linda to the sphere of influence of Colton, with the intention that one portion would ultimately end up being de-annexed, this portion going to the city of Colton, this portion to remain in the city of Loma Linda, and ultimately be contributed to the South Hills. It was approved by the City Council, the request was approved, and then it went forward to LAFCO on July 20th of 2018, who approved the sphere of influence change. Once again, sphere of influence only, not city limit change. And once again, a sphere of influence is, it's basically for future planning and growth management. Services don't change, taxes don't change, who you belong to doesn't change. It's purely for future planning. And that would shift that planning from Loma Linda to Colton. Make sure I catch up here. And in the beginning of the process, then it would allow for CEQA determinations, environmental impact reports, mitigations, the same kind of thing that we do with any kind of large project. On May 19th of 2019, there was a submission made to the city of Colton for a general plan amendment, specific plan, a zone change, tentative track map for this piece of property here. The city of Colton rejected the submission because they said they needed time to evaluate the project, and they had not completed land use studies or done anything relating to the sphere of influence change. So that is, from what I understand, there has been a submission again to begin the environmental review process for work to be done in this, once again, this section here, not in this. And that would once be the CEQA determination. Ultimately, then that would be a request for, and the term, everybody uses de-annexation, I forget what the right term is, detachment, sorry, detachment from the city of Loma Linda and annexation to the city of Colton. From our city attorney, that is something that would need to come back to the city of Loma Linda and come back to get Loma Linda approval. So as we look at what's going on out there, the facts of the matter on the ground is that there's a couple of big things that are related to that. Primarily is Measure V, how we address Measure V, and access into and out of the Scotch Lane area, and then finally traffic impacts resulting from anything happening on Ritchie Canyon into the future. So first, Measure V, that precludes any direct access from the city of Loma Linda directly to Ritchie Canyon Road by any route. So if you look at it, and Measure V specifically calls out access from each one of these streets as being prohibited to be allowed to connect in any manner to Ritchie Canyon. So there's no practical way to divert Ritchie Canyon traffic into the city of Loma Linda. Measure V completely prohibits that. What it also does is it prohibits this portion, all of it now, but on the assumption if this were to detach, it prohibits mass grading, large-scale shifting of the topography, or ridgetop construction anywhere in these hills. So any type of construction would have to be more of a blended, lower impact, and it requires the zoning out here to be one dwelling unit per every 10 acres. So a very, very sparse zoning in that the northerly section of that. As far as Scotch Lane, they are in the city of Loma Linda. They're in the city limits. Scotch Lane is a private road. It's not a city-maintained road. We do not provide police services. The sheriff provides that through contract for us. Fire service is provided through Colton through mutual aid. We do not provide water or sewer for that area. However, we do provide trash pickup. That's the only real city service that we provide to the Scotch Lane area. And then the final piece is traffic from Ritchie Canyon Road that ends up hitting Barton Road. And there are impacts in the evening during the rush hour that tend to back up as far as University and up into the Barton Road curve. So there is, right now, some backup in the evening rush hour coming through there. Until the annexation is approved and completed, the area remains part of the city of Loma Linda. It remains under the Measure V restrictions, and it remains under control of the Loma Linda Municipal Code. We are not committed at this point to any annexation in the future. That would be subject to LAVCO procedures. It would entail further hearings on the matter, and it would involve subsequent environmental and fiscal review on how services would be provided to that area should anything occur. The city could indicate its intentions for the area, interject conditions on the project, basically block any type of annexation that Colton should try. So Loma Linda does have the ability to essentially stop anything that would happen there. And if annexation does go forward, the area that would be annexed out then would be relieved of Measure V restrictions and would shift to the city of Colton under their municipal code and also be under Colton's service requirements. The one I did miss, and it is, sorry I skipped over this, in the sphere of influence change, LAFCO did not want to leave the Scotch Lane as an island of Loma Linda service blocked from the city by Colton. So they included this as part of the Scotch Lane area as part of the sphere of influence change, as well as these two parcels on the south here. That's the same owner owns both parcels. So the sphere of influence change as it sits now goes all the way down to here, and then that piece here. And with that detached, then all of that would shift to the city of Colton. Any questions?
So my understanding, and the reason this came up, I think, is because of the activity going on at the city of Colton, and several residents and of both Ritchie Canyon and the city reached out to us, and so we put this back on the agenda for discussion. I have in front of me 30 emails and letters from folks saying they're in opposition of this, and I know we have some speakers on the line. My question, we discussed this and decided as a city back in 2017, correct?
Correct.
To send a letter saying we would not block a change in sphere of influence if that were to be made in Colton. However, I do believe part of that letter we indicated we were not asking for that for Scotch Lane. Is that correct?
Scotch Lane was not included as part of our consideration.
Right. But LAFCO took that a step further, and they decided that they wanted to include that?
Correct. They felt that since Scotch Lane was not getting essentially any services from the city, that it would be better served for them to be part of Colton. So no, we did not request for Scotch Lane. We did not request for these two parcels down below. Our request was only for these two parcels, which are the same landowner.
Okay. Like I just stated, we have these letters, and I think it would be hard to go through, but all of them were in opposition. Let's hear from the folks wishing to speak. I see 4 hands, I believe. And our IT folks, we're going to work on that now.
We're going to start with Doreen Morgan.
This is Dory Morgan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff, and thank you, Assistant City Manager, for your report. I would like to use some of your wording, Conrad. My family and I request that the City of Loma Linda block annexation of this requested acreage in our South Hills that is intended for development into 350 residential homes. And there are multiple reasons, but the major ones are that moving forward with this decision will intensely worsen traffic gridlock on Barton Road, Retchie Canyon Road, as well as connecting roadways. The additional traffic this development will bring will create severe difficulty for first responders and other safety-related personnel to respond to the public's needs. And that's not even counting the absolute misery of commuters. The decision to allow this annexation and development is in opposition to the Loma Linda voter approved Measure V, which prohibits commercial residential development. So all of this is a workaround Measure V, in my opinion. Please enforce the intent of Measure V and the will of the voters and reverse this decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up is going to be Danny Payne. Let me unmute you. Okay, go ahead, Danny.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes,
okay,
we can hear you.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank the council for taking up this agenda item. I started to watch this back in the fall of 2017 when it was first discussed, and as a former resident of Loma Linda, I live in Retchie Canyon now, but I still very much consider me and my family part of the Loma Linda community. We lived there for many years, still work, send kids to school there, go to church there, but moved out of the community for housing reasons as our family grew and we need to look for a bigger house. So like me, many of my neighbors are in the same position where we consider ourselves community members with both Loma Linda and Colton, and so I do appreciate the opportunity to bring up some of the concerns we have with the project. Since it was proposed back in 2017, we've seen the project evolve, and I'm sitting here with the site plan right in front of me on my table here. And I'm going to deviate slightly and touch on what some of the comments the Assistant City Manager made. Some of our concerns that it's no longer a low-density project, and it doesn't fit into the zoning of Retchie Canyon or Loma Linda. The lot sizes have shrunk to 4,250 square foot lot, which are billed as fitting with the zoning standards if you listen to ASU's proposal and University Realty, but it's because they're clustered and they take into account gross acreage. So in their clustered format, they're actually fitting up to 10 homes per acre, and they're putting those homes behind Prado and Crystal Ridge neighborhoods where they're all zoned for half-acre lots. So it creates significant density behind our neighborhoods. The initial intent of, I think, the South Hills was to minimize hill contouring, and the plan is to completely level hilltops and fill in values to effectively terrace the area and allow them to shrink lots further. We're concerned with the infrastructure challenges, which is what most people in the canyon deal with on a daily basis when we're trying to get into Loma Linda. There's a 6-minute fire response time that's mentioned as a policy, but we're nowhere close to that in peak traffic. So we have infrastructure concerns. We're concerned with how this will reshape the South Hills. We're concerned with how much traffic 350 homes will send through 2 residential streets that are the only outlet. And we've spent significant time informing the community and organizing. So we have 450 people in the canyon now that are on our list. We've had 2 meetings with LAPCO. We've had multiple meetings with Colton. We're getting the sense that nobody is really enamored with this project, and it's creating significant ramifications for Loma Linda community members and Ritchie Canyon members. And it seems like it doesn't have a material benefit to the city or Colton, to the city of Colton or Loma Linda at this point, including monetary. So we're concerned. We're watching this. We'd really like the city to reconsider the sphere of influence agreement that was considered before. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Kevin Bally.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate Mr. Mayor and the City Council for allowing us to speak publicly regarding this. I won't take a lot of time because I think most of us have the same kind of comments, and we'll just kind of adding our voices. Like Danny said, many of us who live in down the Ritchie Canyon Road area, both in Crystal Ridge and in the Prado neighborhoods, are essentially members of the Loma Linda community. I myself worked here and been a part of Loma Linda University since 1993, and my kids go to school there, and we go to church there, and so we're obviously part of this community. I think that it is unquestionable that if this were to go forward in the format that has been proposed by the developers, that it will have impact to all of us who are trying to, commute and the traffic that we face, but also to Loma Linda residents as well, who obviously we reside in Colton, but the Loma Linda residents will also feel this due to traffic constraints that have worsened significantly in the last 3 years, unquestionably. I think for those of us like myself who tend to lean towards the libertarian view, I don't like the idea of government imposing the ability for a private owner not to have any ability to develop their property. On the other hand, zoning laws and as well as items such as Measure B, which reflect the will of the voters in the community, have been put into place for a reason. And many times, for understandable financial reasons, developers want to change and thwart those zoning laws as well as other measures that the community has put into place. And I understand that motivation, but I think it really has to be looked at in terms of its impact to the community, the impact to traffic, the impact to first responders and the potential for natural disasters to happen or fires to happen in these areas. And again, I believe that those types of things will impact not just the members of Loma Linda community that live out here along Ritchie Canyon, but also members of the Loma Linda community at large. So I'd like to add my voice of opposition to the council approving a continuation of plans for annexation, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Jason.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Mr. Mayor, thank you, and City Council members, thank you very much for this opportunity. To say similar things that Kevin has said and Danny has said and others have said, I'm an employee of Loma Linda. I live near Loma Linda because of the relationship that I want to have with the city of Loma Linda, in the sense that I work there. I spend a lot of time. We spend money at Loma Linda. We enjoy the community and the values of Loma Linda, and that's why we wanted to live close. along with those values are the South Hills. The South Hills around Loma Linda provided hundreds of hours of recreation and walking and biking and fellowship back there with friends and family over the years that I've been part of the greater Loma Linda community. And I do say greater Loma Linda community because it seems like every time I'm back there, I meet neighbors from Colton, neighbors from Loma Linda, and we have a great time, in those South Hills. I think it does change the culture of our community to bring in some of these housing thoughts and developments. We specifically looked around to find areas close to Loma Linda that had an ability to have a little bit larger property size while still being able to get to Loma Linda in a reasonable period of time. And back to that whole point on beauty, this whole area has been a beautiful area for so many years, and I think many residents living around here enjoy, the drive when it's not busy, seeing all the different wildlife, seeing all the different points of beauty around this area. So I too want to just add my voice in opposition to this annex, and I appreciate your time and allowing us to speak this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for making a comment.
All right, next up is Michael.
Hi, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Samargia, and I, like Danny, Kevin, and Jason, live in the Ritchie Canyon area. Most of us here work at Loma Linda University Health, and probably most of us would love to live in Loma Linda, but the citizens of Loma Linda ensured that there would be no expansion into the hills through Measure V. And because you can't have more housing, we had to do the next best thing, which is find a place close by to live, and Ritchie Canyon was it. When ASU came back to you guys, as Danny stated, they wanted just to explore, and they wanted to build high-end housing. Since then, they've changed their tune and now want to build high-density housing. And so what is the effect of Loma Linda City Council's decision? Well, as we all know, we live in an environment where there's a lot of fire, and with more people, there'll be more people needing to be evacuated. And in case of a fire, residents of Prado, Crystal Ridge, and the other neighborhoods, including Scotch Lane, would only have two ways out: Ritchie Canyon North and Ritchie Canyon South. As you likely know, Paradise in the campfire had 3 roads out. We only have 2. Your action would increase our population density without providing us with another way out. Your action will likely help create what is likely to be the worst catastrophe, natural catastrophe, in the local region. So if you are not swayed by this moral argument, then remember that most of the residents work at Loma Linda University Health, and most of us spend a lot of money in Loma Linda using the various stores and restaurants, and incurring some of the speeding fines and maybe parking violations. Not all of us, but some of us. And if a catastrophe should occur, they would be a loss to Loma Linda, at least from a practical perspective. I would not only urge you to reconsider your continued support, but I would implore you to rescind your support to LAFCO for this project. Thank you, and with that, I end my comment.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, we have Jim.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello. Mayor and Council, thanks for agendizing this item. My name is Jem Montes. I am a resident of Ritchie Canyon. I can't necessarily say that I'm opposed or in support of this item specifically, but what I do want to say is Ritchie Canyon has seemed to take the brunt of the traffic issues all for themselves. And we alone are not the ones who have created the traffic issue. And that really concerns me. I know that there are a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration for development to be done, and maybe that's not the answer. But I'm asking people to look and consider that everybody, as our neighbor, has to consider what we can do, what part of this we can take on, how can we help each other to make this go smoothly, as smoothly as possible, because the traffic does need to be resolved, and they aren't all Ritchie Canyon residents, and that's very concerning to me. And if the only way that we can navigate that and create a safe community and get our utilities upgraded and all the infrastructure that's necessary to move forward in a safe manner is taking on a developer, I think that that might be something that we should consider, because I hear a lot of people talking about the issues. We all know about the issues. What we need to look for are solutions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
If there's anyone that wishes to speak, please raise your hand or tell me so in the chat. Otherwise, we will close public speaking on this item. Okay, got one more. All right, you are unmuted.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Christina Gassi, and I'm a representative of the owner of this item and the applicant for the Rancho del Prado specific plan to the city of Colton. I'd like to offer just a few comments. The city of Colton has accepted our specific plan application, and we're working with city staff on the required process. That includes a full environmental impact report as required under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. We are committed to ensuring that the final Rancho del Prado specific plan and EIR address stakeholders' concerns, and we look forward to doing so through that process. The property that is owned by University of Realty is 430 acres total. However, the RDP proposal is specific to only 203 acres located to the south-facing slope, and it's not visible to the city of Loma Linda. If the annexation of that site is approved, the remaining 227 acres will be gifted to the city of Loma Linda as open space in perpetuity. A couple of other quick items of consideration. The RDP application requires preparation and public review of the full EIR. The plan also provides a 1.5 million gallon reservoir dip station, helipad for regional firefighting uses, and a reliable and domestic and emergency water system. It would follow strict adherence to seismic safety requirements. As well, the approval of the RDP would facilitate needed roadway improvements, including a new secondary access road from Ritchie Canyon exiting west to Barton. The Scotch Lane site is not part of RDP, and any future annexation of that land is for those homeowners to decide. We appreciate your consideration and thank you. And if anyone has questions, you can also find us at RitchieCanyon411.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this item? If you're on the phone, please press *9 to raise your hand or inform me in the chat. Okay, no takers.
Okay, I'll wait. Sounds like we're disconnected. Okay, we'll open this up for council discussion.
So, question for city manager, city attorney. We've been hearing this since January. What can the city council do at this point? It seems like there's already a letter that has been sent to LAFCO, but it doesn't matter if we send a new letter because LAFCO has to make a decision first and then the city council will vote on the final one, or can you just clarify the process, please?
So the process right now is it's in the Colton sphere of influence. Colton will proceed through the planning process, and I think as the representative from the developer said, they will have to pass all the environmental quality review acts, which include transportation and the traffic, as well as life safety and zoning. Those are monumental documents to create. At that point, then, there would be a request from, and that would go through multiple hearings on the Colton side, not the Loma Linda side. But Loma Linda would be allowed as the city that's responsible for it up until that point to provide input into that environmental review process up to the point of saying no. But it would work through the Colton side. Should that proceed, then Colton will go to LAFCO to request annexation. And from what I understand, then it has to come back to the city of Loma Linda for us to approve and allow detachment so that it can be annexed into Colton. So it will stop me if I'm wrong, Rich. It will take an active vote from the council here to detach and move it to Colton. Is that right?
Let me just clarify a couple things. There are two steps, as Conrad mentioned. One is the specific, well, I'm sorry, let me back up. The sphere of influence is the first step, and that has already occurred. This area was already transferred by LAFCO from Loma Linda's sphere of influence to that of Colton. And LAFCO had the right to do that with or without our approval, which they did over our objection as to Scotch Lane. The next step in the process is what we heard the potential developer discuss, which is the pre-zoning. They have to go to Colton to do pre-zoning, and in this case they want to do a specific plan that would lay out the development standards and what could go into this area. They would then need to file an application with LAFCO, and LAFCO would conduct their hearings and process to decide whether or not to approve the detachment of the land from Loma Linda's jurisdiction and annexing it to Colton's. However, during that process, California law provides that the city of Loma Linda would have the right to object. And if the city of Loma Linda were to object, the detachment from our jurisdiction cannot occur. In other words, the city of Loma Linda has a veto over that entire process. Unlike the sphere of influence process, which is LAFCO's planning process, the detachment or de-annexation is subject to Loma Linda's approval. And so we have not, at this point, before us, either an application pending before LAFCO to do that, or a formal request for the city to consent or to object. It's premature to take that action at this time. Nor do we have before us any entitlement application or zoning application or anything of that nature upon which you could exercise your jurisdiction. So all those things will come in the future, but the actual development of the property pursuant to a specific plan and approvals through our zoning code and development code cannot occur and cannot be discussed or acted upon unless and until the annexation or de-annexation occurs first. So as long as it's in the city, in other words, they would have to file applications with us to do any of that work. If it's detached from Loma Linda and annexed by Colton, then their pre-zoning would become effective and they would go forward with their process to approve the project there under their standards. But as long as the property remains within the jurisdiction of Loma Linda, you as the city council have control over the development of that property pursuant to our codes. And so there's a misconception. I was reviewing some of these letters, and that's why I got a little slow to respond here, but there's a misconception among some that the city has already recommended or approved or agreed to detachment of this area from Loma Linda and annexation by Colton, and that has not occurred. That is not what occurred with the previous letter. That only related to the sphere of influence issue, which is a LAFCO planning measure and not a jurisdictional matter and not a development matter. So I hope I explained that properly. I think I may have misstated one or two things, but if there's any other question, I'd be happy to.
If we could,
I have two. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
No, I just, we have some new council. I mean, we've discussed this multiple times, but it's been a long time. And I'm not sure who's best fit and ready to give us a little bit of history. I remember this was a property that was owned by an individual who, after his demise, donated it, part to go to, I think it was Arizona State University, part of it to Loma Linda University, and how this all ended up, the entire thing in our court, I'm less clear on.
Well, yes.
Because where does Arizona State University fit into all of this, I guess is my question.
The donation, as I understood it, was for the benefit of Arizona State University.
That's my recollection.
But when this matter first came up, there was a letter sent that seemed to imply that there might be a donation to Loma Linda University, and that was why our council, in an abundance of caution, said, well, if that were to ever occur, we don't want to be perceived as having any potential conflict of interest. So in an abundance of caution, we drew the straws, and the decision was made without consideration of that potential future gift to at least allow LAFCO to consider whether or not it made sense for all the cities to consider removal from the city's jurisdiction and adding it to Colton's. But there was never any commitment, there was never any project really pending before the city of Loma Linda where one might argue a real potential conflict of interest could have occurred.
So who's the current owner of both Parcel 1 and Parcel 2 currently?
I think the parties on the phone could probably address that. I don't know. But I understand that there was
some company out of Phoenix.
Okay. So they own it. It just happens to be within our jurisdiction.
Yeah, it happens to be within our jurisdiction, but it was some holding company or an individual that's based out of Phoenix.
And is the holding company also the developer of this project? Because there's a lot of pieces here, and I'm trying to connect the dots.
Typically, these things have multiple pieces. I'm not saying that this is the case here, but typically, there's a property owner, there's a developer, there's a commercial builder, there's actually somebody that creates the finished lot, so there's usually 4 or 5 bodies involved in different phases of this. And from here, what we can see is that there's a property owner, which looks like a holding company or individual who does that kind of thing, and a developer who's going through the first phases of entitlement. Specific plan, kind of like we did with Area D.
So just to be sure I understand what's happened is we wrote a letter granting or proposing, even though we didn't need to write the letter, I guess, for sphere of influence to LAFCO. And in the process, they took phase 2, but they combined it with Scotch Lane, Prado Lane neighborhood for that sphere of influence. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, LAFCO did that, and we really had no control over that process, even though our letter consented to them considering the change as to the one portion. But my understanding is that the mayor at that time actually objected to the inclusion of Scotch Lane in the change of the sphere of influence, and they basically said, well, we think we should do that anyway, which is within their right. But again, the difference between the sphere of influence is
and
that
annexation.
that has no control over the
So-
jurisdiction of development of the property.
Let me ask a couple questions first.
And the reason we don't know who the owners are and things like that is because there are no applications of any type pending before the city of Loma Linda. And so we're kind of in the background observing Colton reviewing or considering the environmental aspects of a specific plan that would be pre-zoning if they, in the future, go to LAFCO, apply to change the jurisdiction, and if we consent to that at that time in the future.
So let me ask a couple of questions real quick for clarification, and then give you a quick statement on my perspective. Being intimately involved with that meeting we had in October of 2017. You made a very interesting, you phrased it very interestingly to me, and that was, at this point, Loma Linda would be allowed to object to a change of jurisdiction. And that's the way it's always been presented to me. It was never presented that it would come before us in an action and we would have to approve it. We would just have the possibility of blocking it should that come up. That is, that's a little bit worrisome to me, because then now we're talking about timing, and we're talking about potentially a different council. We're talking about all kinds of things that could happen at some point in the future. But just to be real clear, I want to make sure I've got that correct, because you're nodding at me, that they're not going to come back to us and ask us if we're willing to give up and let Colton annex. We have an opportunity to block it if we chose to. So that was number one. Is that correct?
Yes, I think you're correct. The process says that they would file an application with
LAFCO.
And the city would get notice of that. And at that time, the city has the option of objecting if we choose to.
Right.
If we object, LAFCO will stop those proceedings dead.
Okay. And then I just wanted to clarify, but you made that clarification on sphere of influence. So our letter to LAFCO, which I'm going to call this my dance with the devil, right? When we make those types of affirmative requests, and that was an affirmative request for us to LAFCO to change the sphere of influence to Colton, we did so putting that on LAFCO's radar. Also, like we've all kind of come to understand, LAFCO can do whatever they want. And our mayors strenuously objected to the Scotch Lane portion, because that was very clearly not part of this development, and our residents in Scotch Lane want to stay in Loma Linda. However, once we had put that on LAFCO's radar, LAFCO decided on their own they were going to bundle it all up and take it together. Is that correct?
Well, I think the change in the sphere of influence was always on LAFCO's radar, and I don't think our letter
Didn't.
caused them to do anything in particular that they could not have already
Okay.
had the authority to do.
Those were questions I asked at the time, and my question was at the time, why did we even need to send anything to LAFCO? But we were told, well, we needed to, so this venture company could explore the options. So that brings me down into my third question and point, really, is that publicly they stated at that October meeting that there was a benefit to Loma Linda University Medical Center. And they had email correspondence and stuff with us as various council members prior to that meeting indicating those things. So I don't think there's any question that Loma Linda was going to be a benefit to that. Why they chose to do that, I don't know. But that was very clearly, it's on the record if you watch the video. But where I'm going with this is we have been told all along as a council, this is all just for exploratory options. And so this just allows them to kind of look at the feasibility. It just allows them to take that next step. And, you know, it's probably not going to happen because there's so many challenges to it. I mean, we've listed 1,000 of them. Both of you spent 20 minutes explaining them to us. So we don't even, this is just so they can explore it. It doesn't mean anything. Nothing ever means anything. And here we are. And so my concern is that there will be one more next step and another next step, and pretty soon it's going to actually be reality. So I think this question was posed to us as a council. Several of our residents brought it up, have been corresponding with a lot of us as we sit here today. And so the question to us is, do we sit back and watch this unfold in Colton, like I think the developer would love for us to do, or do we take an affirmative action at this point and decide what we want as a community and whether or not we're going to have a voice? And so that's my comment.
It sounds like you're saying a little bit like Emmett Sullivan in his response to the writ of mandamus. I can get to it, but you can't do it, shouldn't do it right now. What would you say to a concerned resident, all these people that wrote the emails? It sounds to me, based on listening to this whole thing, that if you were concerned about this, you have two avenues. They can either, or do both, either or, go to the Colton City Council and try to get the project stopped now, or if Colton goes ahead and goes through with it, it still has to come here, and then they could come back here and try to get it stopped then. Is that what their recourse would be?
Yes, the public has a right to address any actions by Colton as far as the environmental review and rezoning and whether or not Colton wants to apply to change the jurisdiction through LAFCO. And if those things happen and LAFCO starts the process to consider a change, then the public can oppose the change at the LAFCO level and at the Loma level.
But it's premature for us at this point to say we're not going to let you do any of that.
No, I think we can say to the public they can take whatever steps they feel they need to take to promote their own interests and the interests they see the city has. But there's no application that I'm aware of pending with LAFCO to change the jurisdiction of the city or to annex to Colton these areas. So if we were to do a letter to LAFCO now objecting, we're objecting to something that hasn't yet been filed. Right. It's somewhat premature.
That was my Emmett Sullivan reference there. Okay, so that would be my message to the people that are concerned then. They would be talking to Colton, right? And saying, hey, maybe we don't want this project.
I think they're talking to us, and I think we represent
well, I know us too.
A good portion of them. So.
But eventually it has to go through Colton first and then to us? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think so at all. No. I think we have the opportunity to put an end to this right now.
But that's the question.
I thought he just said we really couldn't because they haven't even voted on anything yet.
I think signaling to LAFCO that we would reverse our stand with that letter is one way to go. I think making it clear to everybody at the beginning of where we stand would probably save this developer a lot of money. It'd probably save Colton a lot of heartache, and it would probably relieve the angst of a lot of citizens that'll have to live through this for the next 2-3 years as this drags on. That's my challenge with this. Is that
no, I get it. I
you know what I mean?
I totally get what you're saying.
It's fairly easy for us because we're not directly affected, and they have to watch for those markers and be aware of those timelines, and that's putting it on them when they've approached us for some.
Just to follow up on Councilman Lenart's comment, my understanding from our city attorney is LAFCO has complete control over sphere of influence. We can write letters every day if we want to, but they can do what they want to in terms of sphere of influence. It's when the annexation or de-annexation comes up that we would have a veto power.
But remember, we have to affirmatively challenge that when that annexation comes up. They're not going to approach us. So that would mean we have to watch, or those residents have to watch for that.
I didn't understand that.
That's exactly what was just clarified.
Right, it's very confusing.
Yeah, okay.
But I see what you're saying. What you're saying is, hey, I can just tell you ahead of time when this comes, we're going to do that.
My point is we put this on LAFCO's radar. We're the ones that sent the affirmative letter saying consider this. And that was a first step. So we partly created this, in my opinion.
So LAFCO can take our land without us voting on it?
No.
That's annexation.
Yeah, yes, no. That's exactly my belief, is that unless we mount an affirmative response to say no, they could, in a sense, make that move. is the way it's been
We
explained
need
to me 100
clarification
times.
from the city attorney.
I was under the impression it would come to us.
Yes, that's my impression.
If there is an application filed with LAFCO, we would get notice of that.
A notice, but it wouldn't necessarily come on an agenda item asking us to interfere. It would just be noticing us. Am I correct or not?
We would get notice, and I believe the property owners would get notice as well, so it would be a very public proceeding.
But could anything go through without us voting on it?
If you choose to do nothing, LAFCO could make its own decision.
I don't understand what's so hard to explain that. I mean, like I tried 20 minutes to get that answer, and that's really what the crux of it is, right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at.
You know, and that's what bothers me, is that potentially in years from now, this could be a completely different makeup. Nobody's watching for this. It's not on our radar, and it comes right through.
The problem is, if you take an action today, and there's nothing pending with LAFCO, that same future council in the future, when the application comes before them, could...
You're 100% correct, but this council right now is obligated to serve the residents that we serve right now in this moment.
You can certainly state your...
Like a resolution? Could it be like a resolution that our intent, if this came through, would be to not let it go through? Like not an action as such, just a resolution? I don't know.
I guess part of where my frustration lies is I don't fully understand LAFCO and what the boundaries of their authority and actions are. Because I think what I hear the mayor saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if we are proactive now and send them a notification that we would object to any form of annexation, and we're not happy about the sphere of influence decision that they made, that may stop this project. Is that a...
That's
what's
exactly
that?
What I'm
It
thinking.
wouldn't technically stop anything, because there's nothing pending before LAFCO at this time that we're aware of.
Yeah.
But it would certainly send some message to the proponents of the project and Colton, but they could still go forward and try to make their case down the road to LAFCO and to the city of Loma Linda that what they're proposing makes sense. But ultimately, the city council would have the right to reject the transfer of this land from your jurisdiction to Colton.
And do we have any kind of representation on LAFCO? I assume we have a county board supervisor or something.
No, it's selected by the mayors of the county, and it's elected every 2 years, I believe. It just came up this year.
Or just random people that the mayors are advocating for?
I forget what the makeup is, but there's a couple of mayors, there's a board of supervisor, there's a couple of different people. But our option to get, like our mayor or whoever was up this year, and I believe it's the city of Fontana and city Rialto mayors that currently sit on it. But I'm not clear. I'd have to look that up.
So it sounds like the letter from 3 years ago didn't accomplish anything. Whatever happened was going to happen regardless of the letter. And if we send a letter now, it's not going to change anything. Like everything that's already proceeding is still going to proceed.
I would argue that it would change something. Again, this is just my position, but my position is that, again, I think the residents are in constant angst over this, and I think they've made it clear to us, and it's, I mean, you could look at this a dozen different ways. We could say, well, you know, a majority of these people are not Loma Linda residents, but I've been approached by 12 Loma Linda residents that are opposed to this for fundamental reasons. So I personally think, as an elected representative of the community here, they made it known to us that they wanted to see us do something affirmatively on it, and that's my position. Whether or not ultimately, if it changes anything, I don't know, but it makes me feel better. My position is I believe we should send something back to LAFCO saying we've reconsidered and we're no longer interested. Because again, the project, like was mentioned by one of the speakers earlier, it's morphed a couple of times.
Pardon me, City Council. We have a couple other people I want to make some public comments. We have Mark. You see your hand is raised. I'm not sure if it's for this item, but I'm going to unmute you right now.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Mark Stapp. I'm senior executive at University Realty, and we're the owners of the property. I think there's significant amounts of misunderstanding about, one, the project, and two, the process. And I think it's incumbent upon everybody to understand the facts as opposed to the conjecture or the rumors about this. And we would like the opportunity to be able to present both the facts and define clearly the process. This is not a process that is going to rubber stamp anything. This requires us to do what is in the public interest, and that is present the project for public review and allow informed decision-making by not just yourselves, but by the City of Colton elected officials as well. And it's through this process that's pretty well defined by statute that you can uncover both the benefits, the costs, the impacts, and the mitigations. And that is what is normally done, and that is what we wish to be able to do. This is an interesting piece of property. The City of Loma Linda stands to benefit, I think, substantially in the form of not only gifted land of 227 acres and all of the trails that go with it. It's in complete conformance with Measure V, we believe. But also in terms of the ability to avoid having to provide service, which you have stated yourself you are not in a position to be able to do. So it is our intent to fully comply with the statutes of the state of California and process this application so that everybody has a fair opportunity to understand what is being proposed. Because there are many benefits, and it is developers, as vilified as they are, that actually build communities. It is not cities, it is not towns, it is not councils, it is not planning commissions. It is people that take the time and spend the money to do these things. There's significant housing needs in Southern California. There are significant issues with traffic that supplying those housing needs can help mitigate. That's our intent. And we wish to have the opportunity to fairly evaluate what we're proposing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Dory.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak a second time. I am a resident of Loma Linda, and for those who don't know me, I am a planning commissioner for the wonderful city of Loma Linda. I have lived in this community since the mid-70s. I value it tremendously. I was active in the passage of Measure V, and I know for a fact that this proposed real estate development violates everything about Measure V. Measure V guaranteed that there would be no commercial residential development in the hills. And those hills should stay the way they are right now. I understand that this developer is planning to develop another roadway with entrance, ingress, egress to Barton Road, and that will add to the traffic on Barton Road. So it's a Band-Aid to the problem. I understand that housing is a huge issue in Southern California, but this location, this development with the small lot sizes that violates the code for the city of Loma Linda is the wrong location. And as a resident and a voter of Loma Linda, I hold my city council accountable to represent my and my fellow citizens of Loma Linda and residents of Loma Linda. And we expect that you notify the powers that be that Loma Linda will not annex this land to Colton, that we are opposed completely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like that was the last of our comments so far. Any other comments from the dais? Is there any direction from any of the council we would like to take? We're waiting on your vote, Ron.
We all voted, but yes or no?
There's no motion. We're still in discussion.
I would like to suggest that,
yes.
I'd like to say that the proposed action tonight is premature. I think we need to hear all of the pros and cons of it before we just go with the cons. And that's about all I have to say.
Can you refresh my memory on what, given the context of this evening, what would the potential pros be that we're not thinking about?
We don't know. That's why we need to, before we do something like this, I think we need to hear the pros from people who are proposing the pros.
I think that was
somebody
the
besides us.
The one that was just speaking.
I always want to hear all sides. So, you know, on the one hand, I'd like to be supportive of the proactive citizens that we've heard from tonight, and we have a lot of letters and so forth. And from my perspective, they make some very valid points. The developer was articulate, but she basically said what I think we usually hear from developers. And so if there are other advocates of this, whether they're from Colton or the Loma Linda side or the owner of the property, I think that's a valid point.
So I also heard that whatever the developer is voting is, in their view, accordance with Measure V?
No. He said with the developer said in accordance with the state of California.
No, he did say Measure V.
He's not building what's in accordance with Measure V.
Of giving it to Colton if in their view it is in accordance with Measure V. What I'm proposing is we write a letter. However, hearing some of the concerns that we want to hear both sides, can we bring this at the next council meeting in 2 weeks? And then whatever path we choose, whether it's to write a letter of support or a letter against, we vote on that in 2 weeks and allow both sides to make their case.
Is that a motion?
That's the motion.
Just to clarify, the motion is to basically table this for 2 weeks to July 28. And I would assume we would want to contact the parties that are interested in, as Councilman Rigsby said, the potential pros of this as well, because admit over time I've become more rusty on just what those are, but obviously there've got to be some. There would be pros for the owner of the property, I assume, and the developer. But you know, I want it to be a fair process. But I agree with the mayor. I'm very sensitive about some of the things I've read and heard tonight.
Is that a second, or
There's a motion on the table.
does anybody support that motion, or do we have an alternate motion?
Do we know who we would contact in terms of inviting additional
Yes, he just
comments?
spoke, so I would be happy to contact him.
He spoke while you
I'm
were
sorry.
outside of the room.
I picked the wrong time.
You can reach out to Colton and find out who the applicant is.
Okay. Okay.
Still waiting to see if we have a second or an alternate motion.
For purposes of discussion, I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Are we all in favor of bringing this back in 2 weeks for further discussion? All in favor? Well, do we have to do the official vote by Corey?
Yes, because we're on Zoom.
Yes, okay. Madam
No
Clerk.
problem. The motion, as I understand it, is to write a letter and express our concerns, however, wait to vote.
No, I think it was just to
Okay.
bring this back with,
Okay.
for some more clarity, give some people more options to get background and feedback.
Okay, to move to continue this to July 28, to allow the developer, the property owner, and others to present the project, and at that point, make a decision.
Yes, is that correct?
And
The
Mr.
motion
Jindal?
is to invite parties regardless of their stance to discuss this at the next meeting on July 28th.
Okay.
Okay.
Then we'll vote on that motion. Is that
Dr. Risby, was that correct? Your second? Okay.
Are we asking them to present more details of what they see as the pros for it? Or are you just wanting to have another meeting where people call in on Zoom and say what they want to say? Are you asking is the motion for a more formal presentation by the owner, the developer, and the real estate agent? Is that what we're asking for? Or are we just saying we're going to do it again, so call back again, both sides, and listen to them?
Right, so I'm leaving it broad just because, yes, you have the developer, but you also have a group that's, their names somewhere in these emails that are dedicated towards what we might say the no side. So I'm saying let's just have all the parties here, and we can finalize how we want to send a letter to LAFCO at the next meeting.
okay? We'll vote on that motion. Councilman Jindal? Aye. Councilman Leonard? Aye. Councilman Rigsby?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tempore Daley?
Aye.
Mayor Duper?
Yes.
And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone that hung in with us. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the exciting agenda. Moving back up to number 1. And this is actually, it is one of the exciting parts. We talk about this a lot.
Mayor, council, and staff. My name is Tom Farmer with the city of Loma Linda. I'm here before you to go over the spring 2020 weed abatement. We started on April 6th with our first inspections. We sent out notices to clean property on April 9th. They were given until April 27th to comply with those letters to clean property. We went out and did our second inspections and sent the list over to the contractor. We did have some individuals call in for extensions. We were sympathetic because of the stay-at-home orders and the COVID-19 stuff. We extended a lot of those extensions to help people get out there and get their property cleaned. Our contractor did approximately 30 parcels that were not cleaned by the time he got around to them. And on June 18th, we sent out the invoices to the property owners, and then they had 4 o'clock today, July 14th, to pay the invoice or to come and make a public comment. It's our recommendation that the City Council receive the report of the Spring 2020 Weed Abatement Program, approve the report, account of costs, and adopt the accompanying resolution establishing liens and assessments on the properties.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing. Any members of the community that wish to speak on this, raise your hand via the electronic method. I don't see anything, so I will turn it over to the dais. Any questions from the council?
One question, one comment. First of all, it looks like a much shorter list than we have typically seen in the past. So
yes, sir.
I don't know if it's your personal charisma or what, but whatever changed is working. The question that I have is, it looks like owner, can I name the owner here? Because it looks like there's a duplicate. If you have the list in front of you.
Yes, sir.
I think those were different parcels, though.
Well, Western Desert is 2 different parcels.
Correct.
But I think Marco Pony looks identical to me. Midway down and then a little bit after that.
Yep. That would be a clerical error with the duplicate with him. He wouldn't be charged twice. It's just somehow it got put on the register twice.
I'm not worried about it. I just thought I'd point it out.
I appreciate it.
I'm kind of a detail guy sometimes. But otherwise, good job.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I thought it was interesting that, and I'm going to say their name here publicly, one of the outstanding debtors is the County of San Bernardino Housing Authority. Just thought that was interesting. I do feel better. I did have a question about one of the businesses there, Loma Gateway. Does anybody know what that was? I tried to do a Google search on it, and I couldn't figure out.
Loma Gateway. So let me go back. So we created this list last week, or actually when we first sent this over to the finance department. Since we sent out the invoices, 5 people have paid, so there's going to be 5 removed off the list. So we still have 18 unpaid. Going back to Loma Gateway, they are the property owners of the old drive-in off of Redlands Boulevard.
Interesting.
And just because they have...
And they did pay. They were one of the people that contacted our office and did pay.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Okay. No, that was my other question.
Yeah. Okay. No comments from the public. I think looks like we're done up here on the dais. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move acceptance of the report.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk. There's a motion by Dr. Daly and a second by Dr. Lenart.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. And the motion is to adopt Council Bill number R-2020-24, determining the cost related to the Spring 2020 Weed Abatement Program, along with the agreement with the Samargia County Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector for the collection of special taxes, fees, and assessments for the fiscal year 2021. Councilman Jindal? Aye. Councilman Lenart? Aye. Councilman Rigsby? Mayor Per Tempore Daly?
Aye.
Mayor Duper?
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 2, a public hearing on amending the master user fee schedule to add a credit card convenience fee. I'm imagining this comes from finance.
Mayor, council members, this is just, we're recommending that the City Council adopt Council Bill R 2020-26, and it's amending the fee schedule to add a credit card convenience fee for non-utility billing payments. So this would be all other fees that are not related to utility billing. In 2016, we did a fee study for all service fees, and at that time, we didn't implement a convenience fee because credit card companies would not allow governmental agencies to charge a convenience fee. A lot of public agencies at that time then outsourced to a third-party collection company that would charge a convenience fee. So those public agencies, so other cities still outsource that collection process to a third party. Since then, we are allowed to charge a convenience fee for credit card processing fees. And at that time in 2016, when we did the analysis, most of the payments were related to utility billing that were for credit cards. So those costs are already absorbed within the utility rates. So charging a convenience fee on those is basically double dipping into the service charges. So that's why we're excluding utility billing from the convenience fee. Since 2016, credit cards are becoming the main payment source for most of the bills. We are seeing that we are getting people paying their licenses, their business license, their dog license, every parking citations, everything, development permits, developer impact fees, and we're even getting the TOT fees from the hotels are paying through a credit card fee. So we are being charged on average a 2.2% charge on those fees. So basically the general fund is subsidizing these charges, and since 2016 till then, when we did the analysis, we have paid an increase of about $34,000 in credit card processing fees.
Is that annual or that's cumulative?
Pretty much
So
annual.
about $35,000 annually that the city's eating?
Yes. So that's why we are proposing, we thought it was time to come in and propose charging a convenience fee to recoup the processing fee that we pay to the credit card settlement company. And so we're proposing that the City Council adopt a 2.2% transactions convenience fee on any credit card processing fees other than utility billing.
Okay, thank you. This is also a public hearing, so we're going to open the public comment portion. I don't see anyone's hand up, so we will close public comment and move on to the dais.
I was all fired up to vote against this until I saw that it excluded the utility. Just a thought. She was saying that the rates are already built into it for people to use credit cards. So theoretically, you could say that people who don't use the credit cards to pay their utility bill are subsidizing the people who do use the credit cards. So would you want to look at it and say, okay, fine, we'll bring the rates down, and if you use the credit card, you have to pay? It's not the same topic. I'm just thinking out loud here. It's kind of like the Spirit Airlines.
How does that work?
Spirit Airlines or Ryanair or something like that.
I would say you are correct in that, they are somewhat subsidizing, but utility bills on average, the household utility bill is not significant enough that the 2.2% on that. And we actually, the fees for the utility bills are actually lower because the credit card processing company actually gives us a discounted rate because they are utility billing. So they're even lower. They're at 1.1 or something like that.
And nothing stopping anybody from using a credit card. By the way, is there a way that we can get it so that it would just automatically charge our credit cards? I don't have to log on there.
Mine goes from my bank account.
Huh?
Mine goes straight from my bank account.
We are working on implementing the new software, we will be implementing a new utility billing module, which will allow us to do that.
Is that part of our Tyler software we're buying in the
Munis
consent calendar?
software? Yes.
That would be nice.
Yes.
So I don't have to get the nasty grams when I forget to pay.
My bank does it automatically.
Bring your red card in.
They do?
Yeah.
Oh, you pay it from your bank?
Yeah, from my bank.
Instead of on the, oh, I see. Yeah, I can do that too.
Do some of the credit card companies charge more than others?
Yes.
Correct.
So for example, I've heard from vendors in Loma Linda that the Costco Visa card charges 7% to low volume vendors. And, you know, in order to get 1.5 or 2, whatever % you get out of it, the business is having to pay triple that. So I'm not a big believer in letting people get away with using credit cards for this kind of stuff. And all you have to do is make the fee higher than whatever they get back, and they won't do it anymore.
Right, because there's mention about
Because you get 1% back, and if you charge
incentives.
1.1, I'm cutting it off right there. So I think this is a good idea. I don't think we should be subsidizing credit card companies.
No, I agree.
Sorry. I was going to say my concern was when I saw the 35 grand there, which looked like it was annual. So
Yeah, so following up on that 35 grand, it seems that we're getting charged $1.6 million about on credit cards. Do we know what the effect it would be on businesses, especially small businesses in the area? Are they the ones that are using credit cards? And if so, is it more than just convenience? Just thinking out loud, I'm guessing with credit cards, you have like 30 days to pay off the credit card, so it allows them some more time to accumulate the funds. So the bottom line, do we know what impact it's going to have on businesses, especially with COVID going on?
The majority of the larger transactions we're seeing are actually from development activity. So it's your housing developers paying for permits and development impact fees and then we do have the business license taxes to me, aren't that significant. And for the majority, we do see checks coming in when it's renewal time from those businesses. And then from the medical center, we do see they pay their bills via checks as well. So, but right now, the bulk of it is really development activity.
Very basic question. If that is the case that I mentioned before, where people are using credit cards so they don't have to pay it off right away, do we have something where we can hold a check for them for a period of 15, 20 days? No? Okay. Just thought out there.
We do provide options for people to send their transactions via wire if they have to avoid transaction charges. So we do provide them that they can wire the money in or some other option for paying.
I guess ideally it would be nice if you had some sort of software that could recognize you punch in your credit card and it'll say, this credit card is a 7%. Do you want to continue? But I don't know that things are developed to that stage. This credit card's 1%.
No, we don't. And then sometimes it depends on which processor we use and then what terms they have with the different cards and the different type of cards that are provided to vendors.
I'm ready to move the item if you're ready to take a motion.
One last question. So we heard about the TOT occupancy tax. Is that users using a credit card at a hotel that are having to pay it?
The TOT tax, yes, they are using credit cards to pay those.
So that would be someone like, say I decided to go to a hotel and use my credit card. That's part of the...
No, that's not our fee. That would be the hotels. Yes.
So the hotel is paying in bulk with their credit card.
The hotel is paying the TOT tax to us with their credit card.
With their credit card. But they collect it from the guest.
Yes.
Okay, one more. So what effect does it have on the hotels? Or is there an alternative that we have for them to avoid the 2.2%?
They can pay via, like we said, we offer them the ability to either send a check or pay with a wire.
Okay.
I'll move the item.
All right, we have a first. Second.
The motion is to adopt Council Bill Number R-2020-26, amending the master fee user schedule to add a credit card convenience fee to all transactions outside of utility billing payments. Councilman Jindal? Councilman Leonard? Councilman Rigsby? Mayor Pro Tempore Daley?
Aye.
Mayor Duper?
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, which is item number 3 and 4 are the public hearings on development projects, which we don't have a presentation on, so I'm not sure, under advice from council, we are going to open these to public comment, but I'm not sure what people would comment on. Sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, because it was agendized as a public hearing and noticed as such, we do want to give an opportunity to anybody who came here tonight expecting to testify and who cannot come to the next meeting so that we can listen to them tonight. But we would encourage everybody to come back at the future date in order for that testimony to be fresh before you at the time you'll actually make the decision. So we don't really want to encourage everybody, but we give that opportunity if they can't be here at the future date.
Okay, sir. All right, I will open the public hearing on item number 3, which is a 57-unit condominium project at the corner of Park Avenue and Bryn Mawr in our area called Area D. Do we have any takers for the public comment? And seeing none, I will close the public comment, and we will table this item till the 28th. Sorry, do we need a motion to do that? Oh, okay. All right, so I'll have to entertain a motion to table this item, continue the item.
I move we continue items 3 and 4 to next meeting, July 28th.
I think we have to take him. He's giving me that look. I think we have to do it individually. So I have a motion for item number 3.
I'll second.
And a second. And Madam Clerk.
Okay, we have a motion to continue item number 3, the 57 condominium units located at the southwest corner of Park and Bryn Mawr, to the meeting on July 28. Councilman Jindal?
Aye.
Councilman Lenart? Councilman Rigsby? Yes. Mayor Pro Tempore Daley?
Aye.
And Mayor Duper?
Yes, and I'll just make a comment. I don't know if anybody else from the council has seen any of these proposals. They were not in the electronic agenda packet that we got, so we are all oblivious to this until the 28th. Moving on to item number 4, another public hearing on 213 senior housing residential units proposed to be at the corner of Park Avenue and Oak Woodland Preserve in Bryn Mawr, west of California Street in Area D. Do you have any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will close the public comment and move to continue the item, if I have a motion. No, might as well.
Okay, I would like to move item 4. 213 residential for leased senior citizens housing, 4,200 square feet. Retail bidding 384 parking spaces on 9-acre site located on the north side of Park Avenue, east of the Oaks Woodland Preserve, Bryn Mawr Avenue, west of California Street, and planning areas 2 and 3 and 2 and 4 within the groves at Loma Linda. Specific transit trails track map number 890. Designated specific special plan area D. Zone plan committee intended for senior citizen housing to be continued to July 28, 2020. How's that, Rich? He likes it. That's good.
Okay, we have a second.
That's about as fast as I can read at my age.
Yeah, that's more information than I knew about it going into it.
I was watching Deborah, not you. Huh? She's trying to keep up with you.
Could you restate the motion?
I don't think so.
The motion is to continue to July 28th, the 213 residential units for lease located on the north side of Park Avenue, east of the Woodland Preserves, and Bryn Mawr Avenue, west of California. Councilman Jindal? Aye. Councilman Lenart? Aye. Councilman Rigsby?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tempore Daley?
Aye.
And Mayor Duper?
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Good job, Barbara.
Okay, moving on to the consent calendar.
Move it.
I have a motion. And I have a second. I will see no other comments from the dais. I'll make a comment real quick on this. I thought it was very interesting, and I want to congratulate JARB and our Public Works Department that the pavement rehabilitation from on Barton Road from Campus to Benton actually came in $80,000 under the original budget. Is that correct? That's phenomenal. Like every other project in here, there's always cost overruns. We see this all the time, and all the other myriad of public works projects, not obviously caused by our people, but our contractors. But this one came in way under budget.
Well, what happening is, at first we planned to do a pavement rehabilitation on Campus Street by grind and pave and have removed section of the pavement. That's bad. It just happened to be on a section that University Church has put in an island. So what I did is, you know what, University Church, why don't you go ahead and do your island, and then we'll come back and pave the street adjacent to your island. So the portion that had to be removed, well, it's had to be done by the University Church before I had to do my part.
Oh, so you cheated the church.
No, it was part of the project.
They were going to remove our finished pavement.
Oh, that's a good point.
So they might as well remove the junky old pavement.
Anyway, great job. I thought that was phenomenal.
Couple questions.
Yes, sir.
One is for Conrad. I've got a couple of techie people in my neighborhood that ask about fiber optic, and my reading of the staff report is that the fiber optic is primarily for business and local government use in terms of water and that kind of stuff. That it's not fiber optic that's planted that private citizens can connect to.
It's the private citizen port.
Sorry to get you out of your seat.
I need the exercise. The private citizen portion is directly tied to new home development. So the Lennar houses, the KB houses, everything going in off California,
will all be fiber optic.
We'll have fiber optic installed. And actually, the Lennar, as part of their package, has whole house Wi-Fi that's tied into our fiber. Okay. For existing residences, it is just cost prohibitive to go back and do reconstruction. We actually pioneered some of the construction methods that people are using to do that, and even at that, it's still too expensive.
Okay, well, now I've got an answer for them. On the next item, construct sidewalk and retaining wall at Anderson Street. But in the staff report, I didn't see where that was.
It's completed, sir. It's on the north side of Anderson at the intersection of Mao and Anderson Street.
It's across
on the way to Campus Hill Church.
From the barber shop.
Oh, really?
Yes, before they have no sidewalk.
It's the slope coming down from the Campus Hill Church.
Now the sidewalk connects all the way to the light.
Stairs coming down there.
No, but there's now, instead of having a really crummy bank, there's a chop and a street,
okay.
and there's a sidewalk.
You could never make it to the light. You had to go up through Campus Hill to get down to that light.
And remember how there was this big tall curb, and you couldn't get out of the passenger side of your car because the curb was too high if you parked there, and there's no sidewalk. Now there's a sidewalk and a low curb.
And part of this, we also installed 2 street lights on that side of the street, and tonight you will be awarding the contract to put in a new ADA access ramp at the intersection, redo the sidewalk in front of the psychology department. It's for the barber shop.
Oh, yeah.
And then plant some trees, 6 trees.
Oh, that'll be nice.
And 3 wells. So that's part of the project that you're going to award tonight, sir.
And then on city monument sign replacement 12B, is that to replace all of them or just
No, sir.
Which one?
It's the one on Redlands Boulevard that got hit. So you go down Redlands Boulevard right now, just west of Anderson, you see just pieces of the monument. So it's being made right now in this.
Is the auto insurance paying for it?
Yes.
Was my question.
Yes.
So this isn't the cost to us. This is the insurance will cover it.
Well, yes. Yes.
But the
what happening is
the accounting people counted both ways.
Yeah.
It's revenue and expense.
So we didn't get the project completed last fiscal year, so I have to move over to this fiscal year.
Okay, now I understand it. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, we have
Got
a
a
first. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Got a follow-up question. So in terms of fiber optics, I know it's cost prohibitive, but when we're reinstalling pavement in a certain neighborhood, would it be feasible then to install fiber optic in one of our older parts of the city?
Typically what we do is if we dig up a street, we'll put the main line conduit in as we go. We have literally miles of vacant conduit buried all over the city. And some of those pieces are tying together and will be usable. We use that for municipal use and the commercial use. The real cost is actually getting from behind the curb to somebody's front, through into your house, because that involves digging up the sidewalk, the curb, cutting that part of the street from where it's buried up to your property line, and then actually poking a hole into your house. And that's the real prohibitive cost. If it's just doing the main line work, we've really pioneered some of the work, saw cutting and micro trenching and blown fiber optic that people use all over the world for that stuff. But we haven't figured out a way to get from that point in the street to your front door.
So when we're redoing the sidewalk, would it be a little more cost effective to, if a resident wanted to have that fiber optic, to take it to their house?
No, sidewalk is kind of parallel to the curb, whereas the fiber optic is kind of perpendicular from the curb to the house.
So if you imagine the conduit runs down the middle of the street. So we have to cut the street from the middle to the curb, cut the curb, cross the sidewalk, find some path through your property without killing every rose bush on the way, and then get into your house. And so that's each one of those steps becomes not really the work, but the restoration. Because when we cut the street, we got to backfill, we got to fix all the asphalt, we got to pour back the concrete. I got to replant your rose bushes where we went through. I got to patch your wall where we poked through your wall. All of those pieces of restoration are the expense. So the inexpensive stuff that we do when we tear out a street and put the conduit in, that's just the cost of the pipe. And what we're working at is at some point we will, for the commercial and the municipal piece, have everything tied together. And then as somebody smarter than us, or maybe us someday, figures out a way to do these laterals at a reasonable cost, then we can come back and do
citywide
it.
Wi-Fi.
Yes, wireless.
Citywide
Wireless is coming.
Wi-Fi, and one of those is true citywide 5G. There isn't any real 5G out there yet, but those are the kind of things that we're exploring, is using then our conduit in the street as distribution points, so we only have to land it in one place in the neighborhood and then put out a Wi-Fi or something like that. So those are the kind of things we're exploring. But just a straight house to house, it's between $5,000 and $7,000 to connect a house. And if we're getting $30 a month, where our net is, $12 or $15 a month, that's a lot of months to pay out a $5,000 or $7,000 investment.
Where there's a will, there's Huawei.
Not to take this conversation way off the rails, but I got to sit through a presentation for the county with Mr. Musk of the Elon brand, and he's got a project that they're pushing, and a couple of supervisors are trying to catch up on it. Google it. It's called Starlink, and it's satellite broadband. Still kind of in the development stages, but they're launching thousands of satellites that are going to cover the globe, and that's their vision.
It better be great because it's blocking a whole lot of telescopes.
He's taking us to the moon again, so I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so we have a first and a second. We'll go call the roll.
We have a motion by Councilman Rigsby, seconded by Councilman Leonard, to approve items 5 through 13 on the consent calendar. Councilman Jindal? Councilman Leonard? Councilman Rigsby?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tempore Daley?
Aye.
Mayor Duper?
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, we've already dispensed with number 14. Moving on to new business. Do we have any reports of council members?
I'd like to an item. We all got an email from an individual. He was saying he was going to try to be here. I don't know if you guys read that email about the speed of the traffic on Beaumont Avenue.
Yes.
I replied to him with a couple of ideas and all that. I don't know how feasible they are. But one thing I was wondering is, could we, I don't know what the costs are of having, you know, like we have up at Hulda Crooks Park, we have that little sign that says how fast you're going. Is it feasible to put some down farther down?
We did, sir. We did it just for him. We
Oh,
did.
you did? You're already all over it. Oh, I take it back. Sorry.
The
for
sign is
leaving
already
that.
up on board direction for him.
That's good. Okay.
And
I object to the fact that it flashes at me when I'm going the speed limit. It needs to give me credit for going 35 and not flash at me.
Well, your electric car doesn't go faster than the speed limit, does it?
That's true. But it should flash if you're going 36, not 35.
That did really help.
Maybe it just knows you. It's
For a
just
while,
saying
we
hi.
had an increased police presence back there, and I'd be sitting there watching TV, and I'd see the little lights back there and the siren, and I said, "Oh, I feel sorry for them, but I'm happy for the, you know, what's going on." So, I mean, it's kind of like, in some ways, I feel bad for people on that street. It's kind of like a speed trap almost, because it's so wide. And I bet have we done a traffic study on that? Because it seems like somebody could challenge it.
We have to do a survey every so many years.
The only reason we have that slow speed limit is because of pedestrian traffic. That's
No,
it.
I get that, but isn't
That's
there a
it.
law that says that?
There's a law that says that your speed has to be set at the 85th percentile of free flow.
And we did
And
that.
free flow, you can't do with a speed limit sign. If there's a speed limit sign, it suppresses free flow because there are a whole bunch of compliant people who drive slowly. Free flow is take all the signs out, measure.
Oh, nobody does that.
That's how you're supposed to do it.
Is there any plan to put sidewalks back there, because there's no sidewalk?
we did on the south side, sir.
I believe the survey has to be done every 7 years.
But not
A part of it. but not
correct,
all of it.
because all of them is
The
private property.
west side has sidewalk.
Correct. Because it's private property when they
So
rated
as the
to.
private property is developed and the
Correct.
sidewalk goes in.
Yes.
Thanks, Fred.
But the thing is, he want more in addition to, so that the speed sign that we put up, in addition to, he called Matt all the time for patrol that street.
But I think those signs help.
So he just want more, and
Okay. Any reports of officers? I see we have an item.
Can you put the PowerPoint up for me, please? Just to let the council know that the CARE Acts, this Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, was passed by the Congress and signed by the President on March of 27, 2020. Over $2 trillion was given to the state, the county, and the city, of which the city of Loma Linda will receive about $3,000 for this. We have not received it yet, but we had a webinar with the League of California this morning, and it looked like the money is coming. What can we use this money for? The money can be used for anything that have to do with COVID-19. We went out and bought the PPE, personal protection equipment. We did some improvement to the city hall for the protection of the staff. Put up the protection of the playground equipment at the city park, and we also can use it for public safety. So, but we have to make sure that we keep track of everything because they will come back and audit us. So we have from March 1st to December 30th. They might extend it in the future. So, but right now is closer to August that we can spend this, the end of August that we can spend this money on. So we submit the application in to the State Department of Finance. So just my update on. So that will help. That will help with our deficit of $560,000. So if we get about $300,000, it's not bad. So.
You had to apply for that. They didn't just.
No, sir. They will give it to us, but we have to.
Because
the money is based on the population, and so we get $303,000, and it's supposed to come to the city, but the city have to apply for, which we did. and we have to keep track of our expenditures and submit it to them, and then if they reimburse or they give it to us.
The allotments will come in six payments. So the first one they're anticipating will be in August, and then they'll, depending on your expenditures and what you're submitting, they'll start. But they're hoping that we can try to spend it all by September, because they have to report. The state has to report to the federal
September of this year?
Yes.
How can that be when we have a period up to December 30th?
I mean, you can do some kind of commitments. There's certain things but they would like us to see about spending it by September, because they have to report to the federal government.
This is the money from one of those original stimulus bills that's just now finally making its way, and it has to be noted, because I've sat on conversations with the county and other cities about this, that this was also money that the governor held up and threatened any counties or cities that weren't compliant with COVID procedures. And so we're obviously not anywhere near any of that. We're doing very well. We're doing the best we can. So we're not on his radar, but there is some ire associated with it because he has.
Well, the big ire is on a national level because huge companies got this when it was intended
No,
for
that's
small businesses.
that's a different. That's the
different.
Yeah, that's the PPP thing. That was different. This is CARES Act. This was specific related to government.
Okay.
So it wasn't the business one, but yes, I know what you're talking about. But this was one of the early ones.
Okay.
And it's just now making its way over here.
Okay.
But this is true fiat currency. It was created out of whole cloth and put on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve. There's no money backing this up. This is just printing press money. So as good libertarians, should we reject it?
And then anything that we cannot, if it's spending it over this amount, we will go after the FEMA funding. So.
Yeah. Jarvis figured out that we needed to disinfect Barton Road by paving it. So that was directly related to expense.
So this should decrease our deficit in half, right?
No. Remember, this money can only be related for COVID expenses, so we have to equate that to the balance.
Can we lay off 1.2 sheriffs and then hire them back with this?
Sure. Is it related to their COVID exposure?
I mean, no, I did talk to Matt, and it's turned out that after the webinar that we viewed this morning, just the fire department alone, and all the expenditure that we use, we already spend more than $300,000.
Okay. So no backflips necessary.
All right. Any other thoughts or comments on that? With that being said, we will adjourn the City Council agenda and move into the Housing Authority. Mr. City Manager, do we have any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
No. Well, I don't want to be presumptive. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on our one agenda item? Seeing no hands up, we will move on to the consent calendar.
Move it.
First, second. Madam Clerk.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent calendar. Councilman Jindal?
Aye.
Councilman Leonard? Councilman Rigsby?
Yes.
Mayor Per Tempore Daley?
Aye.
Mayor Duper?
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Do we have any new business? Seeing none. Any chair or member reports, reports of officers?
I'd like to report that we mow our grass and we pay for it when
Yes,
others
we do.
do.
With that being said, I will adjourn the Housing Authority agenda and move on to the successor agency agenda. City Manager, do we have anything to be added or deleted?
No, sir.
Any oral reports from the public? Comments? Speak now or don't. Moving on to the scheduled items.
Move it.
I have a motion to move the consent calendar.
Second.
A second.
The motion is to approve the consent calendar. Councilman Jindal?
Aye.
Councilman Leonard? Councilman Rixby?
Yes.
Mayor for Temporary Daily?
Aye.
Mayor Duper?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
With that being said, we will adjourn the Sex Agency. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.